mother was diagnosed with brain tumors. It started with a heart problem, and then they found that she had three astrocytomas on her brain. Most people don't survive one. She had three of them, and they were stage 3 cancer. And they told her, you only have a 10% chance of making it on the table. Now, keep in mind, we're going back to the 70s, where they didn't have all this fancy equipment that they have now. And they said either you have a 10% chance of making it, or you will be comatose for the rest of your life. And my mother said, I'll be fine. And I'll never forget that. I was there when she said it. That was probably one of the most impactful statements I ever heard as a child. I was about 14, 15 years old. And her confidence in, you're not going to tell me I'm going to die. You're not going to be the one who makes that decision. This is what she's saying to the doctors. That's not up to you. And so I didn't think about it at the time, but later on with all the things that I was going through, that statement of confidence and faith, I'll be fine. And she was. She lived another 20 years. I went to the doctor because my stomach was hurting so bad. I thought I had an ulcer. And I went to the doctor and she's feeling on my stomach and she goes, I think there's something in there, and sent me for, the ultrasounds and things like that. Turns out I had a 20-pound uterine tumor. Thankfully, it was not cancerous, but it had attached to my arteries, which means that to remove it was extremely dangerous because I could bleed out.
Welcome to the Daily Soul Bytes Show. I am your host, Bolaabimbola, frequency alchemist, life coach, and energy practitioner. Daily Soul Bytes is where we bring expert authors, coaches, and entrepreneurs in the fields of spirituality, psychology, and leadership, sharing their insights for the expansion of collective consciousness. And today I have a very special guest all the way from New Mexico. Her name is Goddess Rhonda. Welcome to the show, Goddess Rhonda.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here. I'm thrilled and honored.
Thank you for joining me. We were just talking before we came online that there is a mutual admiration society going on between us. So that's really nice. So I'll read your bio before we start, Rhonda.
Okay.
Goddess Rhonda lives in New Mexico. Author, energetic medicine instructor, and resolution psychic. After losing her husband, surviving a 20-pound tumor, and the collapse of her career, divine guidance and early healing training led her to her true calling. She now empowers empaths, healers, and spiritual seekers to unlock their potential, clear energetic blocks, and step into their divine power. That is so powerful. Thank you for being here again, Goddess Rhonda. I would love you to tell us a bit about that journey of facing those dark nights and how you came to a place where you claimed back your divine power. And we'll hear a lot more about the work that you do, but just a little bit of a background of how you transcended those dark nights that led you to this.
Absolutely. And we're actually going to take it back even a little bit further to when I was growing up. And my mother, she had a daycare center. My dad was a New York City public schools teacher. We were doing great. And then my mother was diagnosed with brain tumors. It started with a heart problem. And then they found that she had three astrocytomas on her brain. Most people don't survive one. She had three of them, and they were stage 3 cancer. And they told her, you only have a 10% chance of making it on the table. Now, keep in mind, we're going back to the 70s, where they didn't have all this fancy equipment that they have now. And they said either you have a 10% chance of making it, or you will be comatose for the rest of your life. And my mother said, I'll be fine. And I'll never forget that. I was there when she said it. That was probably one of the most impactful statements I ever heard as a child. I was about 14, 15 years old. And her confidence in, you're not going to tell me I'm going to die. You're not going to be the one who makes that decision. This is what she's saying to the doctors. That's not up to you. And so I didn't think about it at the time, but later on with all the things that I was going through, that statement of confidence and faith, I'll be fine. And she was. She lived another 20 years.
Are you looking for AAA grade jewelry or gemstones? Utter Spirit are those we will recommend. They actually do really wonderful jewelry. They have gifted me really nice lapis lazuli, which is really good for connecting with universal wisdom, and also this shungite beads, which come from Russia, and they're really aren't rare because a lot of the times you get shungite beads which affect your skin, and these beads have been really nice. My son also loves them, and Utter Spirit, they give back to nature as well, so that is really nice that they are contributing to the environment. And they also send this intention cards. They're quite nice. This shungite card says, I cleanse myself from harmful energies. And the lapis lazuli card says, I am connected to the infinite wisdom of the universe. So there's information that goes with it, as well as them, producing really good quality jewelry. So I will recommend to connect with Utter Spirit. And the code will be going with this video. So check them out.
Fast forward, and I became her caregiver because my father had to work like 3 jobs after this to pay her bills. I'm raising my little sister, getting myself through high school and doing all these things and being my mom's full-time caregiver at the same time as a teenager. And so I got used to caretaking. And I'm going to pull all this together at the end, what I'm saying, but I got used to caretaking at a very young age as well, which trained me also to look for people to caretake, to look for people who, their souls were hurt or whatever, not necessarily in one of the best ways, because a lot of the people that I would attract were people who were happy to take advantage of what I could offer and cause me pain in return for what I did. But each one of those people made me stronger. Well, fast forward ahead. I had become a mortgage underwriter, had been a mortgage underwriter for over 20 years. I felt like I had done everything you're supposed to do. You work hard, you buy a home, you put money to the side. And then came 2005. This was probably the biggest turning point of my entire life. This was the make it or break it. Now, thankfully, I had already started my Reiki training back in the 80s. There was this little universal church that was teaching, and I wanted to learn how to do it because I loved healing. I loved using herbs. My mother taught me how to use herbs to heal, like if you have a cold, what to take, things like that. So I was already into healing in that way, not realizing that that training was what was going to help me 20 years later. And so in 2005, my husband, his eyes turned yellow, and I took him to a doctor, and they put him in the hospital immediately. And they said, I'm sorry, it's too late. He had liver cancer. And they gave him, there was nothing they could do. And they gave him 3 months to live. And he said, I'm not going to sit here suffering for 3 months. He waited for me to make all his arrangements. He was from Pakistan. He wanted to be buried in Pakistan. All of these things. Took me about 2 weeks to get everything together. And then he passed away. That was a gigantic shock to lose someone in just 2 weeks. That you're like, because then you start the whole self-recriminations. Oh, why didn't I notice? Why should I have seen something or whatever? And quite frankly, the doctor made it sound like it was my fault. He flat out told me I should have noticed. And I'm like, I remembered years ago we took him and he had something wrong with the sclera of his eyes. And nobody said anything about that he had, Well, anyway, moving forward. So that right there was a horrible shock. A month later, I went to the doctor because my stomach was hurting so bad. I thought I had an ulcer. And I went to the doctor and she's feeling on my stomach and she goes, I think there's something in there, and sent me for, the ultrasounds and things like that. Turns out I had a 20-pound uterine tumor. Thankfully, it was not cancerous, but it had attached to my arteries, which means that to remove it was extremely dangerous because I could bleed out. Well, and when they told me that, then they said, listen, there's an excellent chance you could bleed out and you not make it because of this. And I said, I felt my mother, and I said, I'll be fine. And I knew I would be, and I was. Well, right after that, after a 3-month recovery, because that was a huge surgery they did, I went back to work and lost my job because we were now starting the real estate crash here in the US. And so with the real estate crash, the mortgage business went completely under. A lot of us had to find new jobs. Now suddenly I find myself no husband, no job, not in the best of health. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And I couldn't find, even with my credentials, I could not find a job, no matter what. And I had been doing this for over 20 years, regulatory compliance. I had all kinds of credentials. I could not find a job. Well, I started selling my jewelry, anything to pay the rent, because I had to give it. I sold my house 10 days before the foreclosure because I couldn't make the mortgage payments, but I sold it at an extreme loss. I just didn't want a foreclosure on my record. So I'm like, what am I going to do? And I was at the point where I sold the last jewelry I had, and I wasn't going to be able to make the rent next month. I said, that's it. I'm 30 days from homelessness. What am I supposed to do? And I turned to the universe. I said, what do you want me to do? Because I've always been very spiritual, and my guides told me, they wanted me to make these copper bracelets with crystal beads on it with, using silver. And back then, thankfully, because now we're going back like 20 years, the supplies for those things were a lot less expensive than they are now. It cost me like $50 to get everything. But $50 is a lot of money when you don't have any money. But I rolled the dice. I was eating out of food pantries, and I said, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to roll the dice and do this. And I did. And I sent an email to all the Reiki healers that I could find in New Mexico, their email addresses. Only 2 people answered me. And one woman had a metaphysical spa locally, and she said, come down. I want to see your bracelets. So I went down there praying that she would buy a bracelet because I had enough gas to get there, but I did not have enough gas to get back. So I was really rolling the dice. And I walked in, she goes, let me see. I showed her my bracelets, and she said, these are really pretty. How much do you want for them? And I said, $20. And she goes, why are you selling them so cheaply? And I said, I really need the money. And she goes, no, we're raising it. It's $45 a bracelet. And then she bought 3 bracelets for $45 a piece and handed me the money. I almost fainted because I couldn't believe it. I walked in with no gas and nothing, and now I'm walking out with almost $150, which is still not a fortune, but it was going to help me. And then she said, you know what? I have an extra room back here, and it's already got a massage table and everything. If you want to do Reiki out of here, I will get you clients, and you can use that room. And she handed me the key to her business. This woman doesn't know me. I just came in off the street. She says, I'm usually not here. I have a day job, but you can come here and you can do it. And she just handed me the key. And that's when I knew the universe was going to help me, because now I was on the right path. And she did. She got me clients. She got me clients, so I started working. That's how I got into my healing, which thank goodness I had taken that Reiki training from so long ago to help me because I was trying to do anything to survive. So I got so encouraged with her buying my bracelets. I went down to the local metaphysical store and I said, could you guys sell my bracelets on consignment? And as I'm showing the owner, people are coming over saying, I want that bracelet. I want that. He started selling them right there. He started selling the bracelets. My mouth was like hanging open. And he goes, you know what? If you want, I can let you set up a table here on the weekends and you can sell your bracelets. He doesn't know me. Do you know how many people would kill to get a corner in a metaphysical store selling their stuff? And he's like, yeah, you can do this on the weekends. Then I really knew. So I started, doing my henna tattoos. I did intention henna for healing, not just for pretty. They were for healing or protection or whatever. And that's how I got started. Then I started my little fledgling YouTube channel because I wanted, what I was learning especially was people don't know how to heal themselves. And one of the worst things I feel when you get a diagnosis is helplessness. You don't know what to do. You don't know who to turn to. Now you're trusting, doctors, they're giving you pills or they're giving you this, but you're not taking matters into your own because you don't know how. You don't know how, or you don't know how to heal the spiritual or energetic challenge that may be translating into a physical illness, through diagnosis of the chakras and what's going on in their auras or past life. Like I'm also a hypnotherapist, so I do past life therapies with people who don't understand.
Yes, tell us more about that. I do want to first of all thank you for sharing your story and and the way it all began and having that very powerful soul contract with your mother that reminded you of your soul path much later in life. And that synchronicity, and we all have those events, those stories or themes in our path. And I think when we hear someone who we resonate with talk about theirs, it also helps us to activate another level of remembrance within our own self. So thank you for sharing that. And I would love to hear a lot more about the work you do now and how you already mentioned the hypnotherapy and the henna work. Just if someone is watching this or listening to this right now, a member of our community, what can they expect when they come to you? What are the services that you offer?
Okay, so one of the things that I do is a diagnosis of what is going on in your chakras and your aura. First, I'm going to feel your energy in general, just to get an idea, because a lot of times what we think is wrong with us is not. And I'll give you some examples. So, for example, I had a person call me and say, I had two psychics tell me there's a curse on me and my life has just been horrible and this and that and the other thing. And I need to know, can you get this curse off of me? And as she's talking, I'm feeling her energy. And I said, you've got some other challenges going on here. First of all, your anxiety levels are through the roof. I said, second of all, you are so filled with anger and fear that you could actually be self-hexing. Because when you get into this tornado, this spiral of negative energy, of bad energy, it can affect everything. It can mess up your career, mess up relationships, because you're projecting, you're pouring it out. And that is at a cost to your energetic health, but also to having a happy and peaceful life. So I said, if there's a curse on you, it could very well be that you are cursing yourself because you have so much stored up anger and bad energies that now it's turned against you. And I said, your anxiety levels are so high, it feels like you're an adrenaline addict. And I'll explain what that is in a second. And I said to her, I said, when I feel your energy levels this high, usually that comes from someone who has been under a very high level of stress for a while, or a child who comes from an abusive home or home where there was no emotional attachment, the parents were emotionally unavailable or abusive or whatever. And she's like, that's exactly what my life was. Her parents were drug addicts. She was walking on eggshells her whole life. And I said, when you're walking on eggshells, we pump with adrenaline because we're scared. And adrenaline is here to help us to fight back or run. And when you're a child, you can't do either one of those things. So the adrenaline sits instead of being used. And adrenaline is dopamine and epinephrine, which is very addictive. And so what happens is your body gets used to running on adrenaline, which mimics the feelings of anxiety. So you could be sitting there watching TV, everything is fine, and all of a sudden you feel like you're going to have a panic attack. You're not having a panic attack. What's happening is your body is saying, oh, look at the time, 12:30, time for a fix, whoosh, and it floods you with adrenaline because it's used to running on it. So now here you are, you're like this, what's going on? I'm having a panic attack, when it's really a physiological response to a chemical reaction based on your energetic fears and a dependency on it. So helping them to wean off the adrenaline and teach them how to cleanse the chakras, cleanse the aura, the emotional body of the aura from that trauma, to cleanse the mental body of the aura so you can think clearly instead of having that on loop, what happened to you, and being in a state of anxiety all the time. And then I like to teach you, after I'll do the work on you to pull things out, see what I can find, clear you up and balance you, but I also give you takeaways. The reason for that is many of my clients who come to me are empaths. And because we are empaths, we are constantly absorbing everybody else's energy. Mm-hmm. So I can clean you up today, but tomorrow when you go to work and you have to sit next to your mean, nasty coworker who sits there complaining all day or projecting her nasty energy at you, there you are again. So I need to teach you how to shield yourself, how to do some cleaning up on yourself. I set up an empath training list on my YouTube so that they can go and take classes for free just to keep themselves cleaned up, because that's very important. But also it's a customized visit. I need to know exactly what is going on with you I'm not a cookie cutter healer where, you come in and I just put my hands in the positions and then say, okay, thanks and good luck. I'm going to tell you exactly what's wrong with you on a custom level. And you'd be amazed, especially doing soul readings, what is going on with people. And that's where past life regression therapy can really be very, very effective to find out for the people. I had a mother-daughter team come to me. The daughter was maybe 18-ish at the time. And the mother brought her in because the daughter was defiant. No matter what you said, she was defiant about it. If you said the sky was blue, no, it wasn't. It was purple. She was totally defiant all the time, just wanted no authority over her. And I said, well, let's do a past life regression and see. Because if she was born, as I said, has she always been this way? Yep, she was born this way. Okay. So that's something in the soul that she brought in with her. Because we're not born defiant unless we brought it in. So we did a past life regression. We went back a few lifetimes. In each of her lifetimes, she was forced, because in the olden days, we didn't just fall in love and get married. You were told who to marry, depending on if it was good for the family. If you married a rich person, that could then support the family or things like that. A lot of marriages were arranged. In 3 of her lifetimes, that's what happened to her. One of them, she was sent off to a stranger to marry. He wasn't a bad guy, but there was no love there. The second one, she actually got along with, but the third one killed her. And all of these were arranged marriages. And in this lifetime, her attitude was, oh, hell no, nobody's telling me what to do. Nobody is going to tell me how to run my life, who I'm going to marry, what I'm going to do. She came in defiant, ready, like no one's going to tell me. But I said, now you understand why you feel the way you do. And what's interesting, her mother in one of those lifetimes was the same mother she had now. And even her mother started, they were crying because they finally realized. And I said, Nobody's going to do that to you in this lifetime. No one's going to force you to marry and give up your body to a stranger and leave your family and not ever get to see them. That's not going to happen. No one's going to make you marry a murderer. You're safe. And that's what her soul needed to feel, was safe. So doing that just changed like her whole entire life, because now she could let that go. I had another person who came in who was clinically anorexic, but she wanted to eat. And she didn't understand, why can't I eat? So we did a past life regression on her. Turned out sometime in ancient times, she worked as a cook for a very wealthy family. And the man of the house was very abusive. And if she made a mistake with the food, he would cut her with a knife. So she associated food with pain. Like, like I better not eat it because I'm going to get in trouble, because if he caught her, she would get punished. And when she realized that that was from that lifetime and not this lifetime, the first thing she did when she left here was go to a Chinese buffet, all you can eat buffet. And she's been eating ever since. So doing past life regression therapies and finding out on a soul level what is going on with you, or what's going on with you in your aura, or what's going on with you in your chakra. Are you an empath who has just been drained? Because we got a lot of those empaths who have just been drained and they don't know how to refill. Because if you keep giving and giving, you're going to end up bankrupt if you're not making any deposits in. And so they end up energetically bankrupt or emotionally bankrupt because they're constantly giving of themselves. And when I say the empaths, I mean service empaths, because there's different kinds of empaths. There are the service empaths that want to heal and help. And there are the narcissists, and narcissists are also empaths. That's why they can read you so well. They know exactly what to say and what to do to lure you in, because they're reading you. The difference is, though, they're doing it for their own gain, whereas the service empath is doing it to be of service to others. And so when you get the dark empath, also known as my personal opinion, because I'm not a mental health professional, but it's my personal opinion that the narcissistic type empaths can see us coming a mile away because they know that we're giving and we'll do anything to help and to heal. And so I also have to teach empaths to set up boundaries, to learn to say no. No is the biggest, one of the hardest things is to say no. And so I teach them a trick that someone taught me, where if someone asks you to do something, you fill your calendar, your own personal calendar. You fill it with appointments, but they're appointments to yourself. Appointment to take a nice hot bath, an appointment to do a facial, an appointment to do stuff that you want to do, so that when they say to you, okay, can you help me out on Thursday? I need a ride. Oh, geez, sorry, I have an appointment. Now it might be an appointment to go sit in the tub. It's still an appointment. It's on the calendar. It's an appointment. So when you tell people, gee, I have an appointment, they're more likely to say, oh, okay. If you say, well, I don't know, then they're going to keep trying. Oh, please, it's only going to take 5 minutes, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I have an appointment. I can't do it. And they leave you alone. So that's a trick, and you're not lying. It's on the calendar. If it's on the calendar, it's an appointment. So, teaching people boundaries, how to say no, but more importantly, and here's the biggest lesson that I find that people have the biggest challenge with accepting, especially as service empaths who really want to heal and help. What happens is, because I'll get the complaint, I keep helping so-and-so, or I keep helping so-and-so, and then they end up back where they are, and I help them again, and blah, blah, blah. And I have to explain this, like, you know what? We're all here to learn things here. We are all here to learn. And if someone is in the abyss of despair or the abyss of anxiety, whatever abyss they're in, whatever deep hole they've put themselves into, and you reach in and say, let me pull you out of here, and they don't allow it, or they'll come out for a second and then they let themselves slide back in, that means the abyss has something to teach them. And you leave them alone. Give them permission to learn their lessons, because that's a part of their soul evolution, painful though it is to watch. If you interfere, you could be interfering with their evolution, and then that's why they slide back in, because they never finished it. So if you try and they choose to stay in the abyss, you wish them luck and you move on to the person who comes to you and says, "Can I please have help?"
I love
You've
that.
got to let people learn.
I love that. I love the way you really support your clients to really come to that deeper self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
because it's that awareness that allows us to then begin to be mindful of those energies or those things that we do that do not serve us, or those things that we need to set boundaries at, or those things that we need to love and embrace and align to even more. And that's what my book, Daily Soul Bites, is about. It's really about understanding the different perspectives that we have within us,
Right.
that higher perspective of love. And we all have them, of love, of gratitude, of thankfulness, of forgiveness. And we all also have those lower perspectives and thoughts that are really around fear and anxiety. And once we become aware of this perspectives, knowing that we have both frequencies, or in 50, 60,000 words in a day, how do we come to realign to our own growth, our own healing? Because we never come to a place where there's no more healing to be done. It's about how
Never.
do we hold those higher frequencies for longer, and how do we let go of the frequencies that we no longer know serve us? How do we let go of them quicker in a way that allows us to expand even more? So I'd love to know, what are the things that you have come to know are really key when it comes to that self-healing. I know there, you help your clients using different sets of modalities. And I think that's really powerful. But, from all your experience, what are, somebody who comes to you and they say, I'm ready to step into that place of expansion. I'm ready to step into that place of a deeper sense of worth, knowing I am enough, or whatever you find that they're stuck in, or they have a limiting block in. Because I also do soul readings, and I also do a lot of Akashic record clearings with my clients
Cool.
as well. So I understand that value of understanding the lifetimes and things that we now need a deeper
Yes.
remembrance in. So I would love to know, based on your expertise, and, as healers and as service empaths, we do come to understand these things in different ways. And it's always good to share our own unique perspectives. So I'd love to know, what are the things that you advise, and based on the patterns that you've come to observe, are the big steps for those who are ready to step into that next level of embodied
Mm-hmm.
divine power?
I would say the biggest thing is, and the most powerful thing is to understand your own energetic body, understand what your path is. So, for just to give you an example, since you mentioned the Akashic records, I read an article, and it's like, oh, you should go into all you have to do is close your eyes and meditate. You'll be in the Akashic records, and I'm like, it's not going to be that simple. And so, but I said, what the heck, because I could get into a meditative state in a second. So it's like, okay, I'm going to the Akashic records. Goddess, I tell you, within a second, I was standing in front of this door. And this man opened the door, and it said on the door, a little sign, it said Akashic Records, and it was so vivid. And this man opened the door, and he looked like something out of like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, with a white beard, and he's just staring at me, and I was like, because I wasn't expecting that. And I said, listen, I want to know what as successful as I want to be. I want to be more successful. What's holding me back? I know I've got the talent. What's stopping me? And he stepped aside, and I walked into this room, and it was a high-end bar, with the leather and the polished wood. And I'm like, why am I in a bar? Because I don't even drink. And I saw in the corner my father sitting at a table, and my dad was a drinker. And so I walked over to my dad, And I said, Daddy, and he passed away. He had passed away some time ago. And I said, Daddy, what's holding me back from being as successful as I can be? And he said, because you're not following your path. You're following the life path of me and your mother and not your own. You saw me caregiving, so now you're caregiving. You saw me do this, now you're doing this. You're not following your own path. You're doing what you saw as you were raised and what you thought was the best thing to do. But my path was not your path. Dealing with sick people, because after, my mom, like I said, I looked for sick people to take care of. I couldn't help myself. I didn't know any different but to caregive and things like that. And these were people that weren't appreciative, trust me, on this. And he says, that was not for you to do. This is not your path. You need to learn what is your path and stop walking the path of me and your mother, which is very interesting because that brings us down to following ancestral paths that may not be your path. And that's a whole new ball of wax with that one. But that was like a bucket of cold water over my head because I recognized the truth in that. I was really following in my father's footsteps with the caregiving and all that. And I said, all right. And so what I did was I went online. Anybody can do this. You can Google how to do your birth chart. I like astro.com, astro.com, which I believe is from the UK actually. And you can go on there and you can do a free personal portrait chart. And you click on all on the things, all the little signs where the houses are, and it'll tell you everything you can about yourself. And that's how I started learning, okay, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Astrologically, what am I here for? Which I'm here to heal and help, which is what my astrological thing said. But at least I knew I was on that right path to do that. But I was also told, you're a leader, you're this, you're that. That I had never been told. Especially, growing up in the 60s and the 70s, women weren't told how great and fabulous and be strong and be a leader. We were told you're going to cook and clean and be a mother and a housewife and, all that. We were pushed aside for the man and we weren't told ourselves, you're a strong woman, you're this, you're that, you can do all these things. And so when I was reading about how I'm supposed to take what I know and actually get it out there and lead people to healing, which is what my chart said I'm supposed to do, that's when I started my little fledgling YouTube channel, which I started with a used camera. I brought every lamp in my house in the room so I'd have, because I didn't know what I was doing, shooting videos and stuff. But it's became my mission after that because now I know what is my path. My path was not to be struggling and poor and things like that. My dad had to go through that for whatever karmic reasons. He had to go through all that. That was not my path. But I stayed a lot in that energy because I was following their path. And so one of the first things you want to do is, what are you here for? If you do that through astrology, if you go to a psychic and have them look at your palms or do a card reading, whatever, find out what is your path, because I find people don't really follow their path. They don't even know what it is. So they're either just fall into a job or whatever. And then I teach you how to self-diagnose what is going on inside of your chakras. And anyone who's listening can do this. Well, just starting with your root chakra, which is your life. In fact, we're going to start with your heart chakra, because I know we've probably got empaths and everybody watching you, a lot of empaths and spiritual people. And we are typically people of the heart. So if you were to take your hands and close your eyes and place them over your heart chakra, and just don't focus on it, just be aware, be aware, be aware, and kind of slip inside. And what do you see? What do you feel? What do you hear? What's going on in there? Is there sadness? Is there joy? What is happening? Is there a feeling of emptiness? Does it feel heavy and it's hard to breathe? Find out what is going on inside of your heart chakra so that you can clean the gunk out and replace it with that beautiful green energy to heal it up. Because you'll be amazed. Now, one thing I do want to point out, because of television and movies, a lot of people feel like they have to see what's going on. I don't see. I hear this all the time. I need to open up my third eye so I can see and be psychic. I'm like, not everybody is visual. So I've prepared, it's on my YouTube channel and the psychic. I have a raising psychic awareness classes on my YouTube channel where I give you a test. It's just a 3-question test to find out what is your dominant psychic sense. It might not be visual. Some people see. Some people just know. They're claircognizant. They just know. Some people hear. They're clairaudient. Some people feel. They're empath or clairsentient. There's a lot of different psychic abilities. Some people say, oh, you know what? Thinking about that, it gives me a bad taste in my mouth. They're saying I'm clairgustance. I literally taste something bad is coming or something good is coming. That tastes good to me. They'll tell you even in their speech, if you're talking to them and they say, I don't see your point, they're saying, I am visual. If they say to you, I'm not quite hearing what you're saying, they're saying they're clairaudient. So you have to talk to them in that way. So finding out what your own dominant psychic sense is so that you can better raise your intuitive levels using that psychic sense. And you can have more than one. That's very important because then instead of seeing what's wrong with you, if you're empathic and you're feeling something sad, or if you hear crying when you put your hands over your heart, it's telling you something is wrong. And if you do that over all of your chakras and write down, keep track, what are you seeing? And write down everything, colors, emotions, smells, anything you can come up with. If you come up with nothing at all, where it's just all black, chances are that's a very blocked area and needs to be fixed. It could be depleted of its energy. So teaching people, to know what their path is, what their dominant psychic senses are so they can use them better, and then how to self-diagnose what's going on so they can fix it right away. Mm-hmm. That's really an excellent way for people to start on their self-healing path. But more importantly, you've got to give up if you're following in someone else's path. I see that especially with the young girls. They just want to be with their boyfriends and things like that and follow along with what they're doing. You must know your own path and follow it. You must know your own energetic field. If you get a pain in your shoulder, don't just say, oh, gee, my shoulder hurts. Put your hand over it and close your eyes. Maybe you got an energy blockage. We hold emotions all over our body. And send that healing energy, send love, send smiling energy into it. If it feels better, that lets you know it was an energetic problem as opposed to a physical problem. Mm-hmm. So understanding your own energetic fields and how to work within it, that is the best way, in my opinion.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Goddess Rhonda. I love what you said about, us being, I remember being a young girl myself and, and all I could think about was, what will the guys think of yes. me? Am I going to be all right, with this guy or that guy? And it is a conditioning, a programming that the system, gives to us, young girls, and it's getting really worse. And it's, this is where it's so important that, yes, you may feel conditioned to go one way, but you can also be self-aware and find yourself doing that self-inquiry and doing all that, inner transformation to become much more aware of other parts of you that you can really come to expand by focusing on it in a different way. Nobody's saying the conditioning will disappear, but it's going to be something that you are aware of and you can really come to cultivate and grow other parts of self. So thank you for sharing that and giving us that remembrance. And I know that you do a lot of work around AI and the fact that AI is something that has its use, but there are also some things that we need to bear in mind in order for us to be able to approach it in a way that gives us our best outcomes. Could you tell us a bit more about your work around AI and your perspectives around it?
Yeah, sure. So first, I have to tell you, in fair disclosure, that I do have bones to pick with AI. When I was a mortgage underwriter, it was the companies bringing in AI underwriters, the computer program underwriters, that actually I feel caused a collapse but kicked a lot of us out of the business. So we lost our jobs to that part. And then I became a freelance writer doing SEO work. And then AI came in and they could do their articles 5 times faster and put them out 5 million times, easier. And so I was actually rather very resentful of it. But and I understand with the transhumanism where now people are feeling that AI can diagnose your medical conditions so the doctors can easily fix it. But I say if AI tells you that you have a problem with, let's just say AI does some sort of, test. I don't know how they work, but they do some sort of test where they can diagnose this is what's wrong with you. You've got a heart challenge. Okay, thanks for letting me know that, AI, because now I'm going to attack it. I'm still going to take, whatever medications I'm supposed to take, because I do think that's important, that everything should work in harmony. Physical healing, energetic healing, spiritual healing. It's all layers of healing. So I'm still going to do, whatever you told me to do, whatever medicines or diet or whatever. But now, because you've brought that to my attention, I am going to now do a lot of energetic work in harmony with that to cleanse whatever is going on inside of my heart chakra that's causing toxic energy through my cardiovascular system. And then I'm also going to, if that's something especially that runs in my family, let's just say, oh, you've got a heart challenge, your mom had this and your grandma and your grandpa. I believe that when you have an illness that runs in the family, I consider that part of a generational curse or generational energetic toxic energy that we have brought with us and put into other people, into our forebears and to our children and things like that. So I'm also going to do an ancestral healing on that so that I can push that energy through my ancestral line to cleanse it and heal it. And so working with AI in that sort of way, I think is very important. But I also think it's important not to just rely on AI to tell you what's going on with you. It's like I think it's important not just to rely on what the doctor says. Also, yes, listen to them, follow their advice with what they say, but then say, okay, I've got this physical problem. What energy blockage is causing it? What energy or spiritual toxins do I have that's causing this? And this way you can actually treat things better and more thoroughly if you have like that clear, because they did a test where they found that AI, they pitted 4 doctors against AI, and AI was able to diagnose with 80% accuracy what was wrong with the person, and the doctors only got a 20%, which is really scary. I'm like, 20%, oh my God, But if you're telling me, here is my physical problem, you've got a gene problem, okay, then I'm going to send that energy into my deformed gene that's causing this. It gives you a greater level of actually doing energy and spiritual healing. Because, I wouldn't, before this, I wouldn't have known to send energy into my DNA to fix whatever gene problems are in there, or markers as they call them. You got a marker for this or a marker for that. Let me get in there and fix that. So using that and having like that kind of a thorough diagnosis tells you how to treat yourself where on an energetic level, what chakra to work on. If you've got problems with your pelvic region, that's your sacral chakra that you need to be working on. If you've got problems in your solar plexus, or you've got anxiety, or this is going on and you don't know, or you've got a challenge in those organs, I should say, that are behind the solar plexus, the upper abdomen, your lungs, things like that, that's where you know where to start your healing, is by the organ. Okay, what chakra is in front of that organ? that needs to be fixed. And so if someone said that I had a problem, let's say I have a problem with my brain, I'm going to go ahead and send that energy into my third eye and my crown to go ahead and fix whatever the energy or spiritual block or problem is. So it can actually give you greater healing by telling you, defining and pinpointing where do you need to send that energy.
The wisdom that AI gives to us and how we use that in a way that we do not forget who we truly are. We do not forget our
Exactly.
own power, and we are able to use it and come back within us in whatever way. It may be writing an email, it may be letters, it may be creating something, but it's about remembering that whatever you're focusing on is what is expanding. So you're coming back into yourself, using that information, that knowledge to come back into our own selves, to enable us to cultivate whatever it is we are seeking an understanding in, whatever it is we are seeking expansion in.
Yes.
So this is so key, and I do love that remembrance as well. Thank you so much for joining me today, Goddess Rhonda.
Thank you. And can I just give a plug to my book, You Are Not Broken, which
Yes.
nobody can see because I have a green screen on. But anyway, my book. And you can just, if you go to goddessrhonda.com, you can see it there.
Yes. Tell us about your book. Your book. Tell us about it.
Yes, my book is called You're Not Broken. Wait, you can almost see it. Yay.
Yes, yes, I
You're Not
can.
Broken. And this was mainly written with empaths and psychic and spiritual healers in mind, because we are so good at helping other people manifest and heal and things like that. And then we look at our own lives and like, why cannot I do this for myself? And then we beat ourselves up. And hence, you are not broken, and you're not. Your ability to help other people has nothing to do with what's going on within your own energetic field, your own personal traumas, and things like that. When you're helping someone else, you're objective. Their challenges aren't your challenge. It's very easy for me to help you, so I'm not emotionally attached to it. But when it comes to myself, there's a lot of other things going on. So this book will teach you how to identify what is the challenge, how to go back in time and fix it, how to look at trainings that are not your fault. Because a lot of the things, as you pointed out earlier, women, we were raised to think of guys, and we were. You're handed a doll from the time you come out of the womb, right? And we give our care to these dolls, these inanimate objects. It's very easy for us to grow up and get involved with unemotional men because we grew up in love with our unemotional inanimate objects that we had conversations with. We slept with them, they cried, we changed their diapers, and we all made this all up in our head. So when we meet a guy who's emotionally unavailable, to them it's very easy for us to project our emotions on that, because that's what we did. We grew up doing that with dolls and things like that. That's not your fault. You were raised to do that. Look at what you were raised to do. Look at TV commercials telling you you're less than all the time. Your eyelashes are too short, your hair is too gray, whatever. We have a lot of other factors. And the point is to break through that, recognize the BS that it is, and move forward. And also how to do emotional shape shifting as well, where you actually get into a space where, for example, you know how it says with typical manifestation things, you have to really believe that you've got that $1 million in the bank. Well, if you're a logical person, there's going to be a part of you that when you're saying, okay, I have $1 million in the bank, I have $1 million, I have $1 million, your logic is going to kick in and say, no, you don't. Why are you saying that? We don't have $1 million. So it's hard for some people can do it. Some people can lie to themselves. I can't. So what I had to do was I had to go back to a time in my memory banks where I felt wealthy. I don't care if your grandfather gave you $1 when you were 5 years old for your birthday. To a little kid, $1 is a lot of money. So you feel rich. Or when you get your paycheck deposited in the bank, for even if it's just for a minute, even if it's going to bills 2 minutes later. But when you first check your bank account and you say, oh, there's the money in the bank, for a second, you feel like, oh, I have money. Tap into that memory. Tap into that feeling because it's real, and your energetic field will accept it as real and help you to project that out to manifest the money.
Mm, I love that. That's beautiful. Yes, and this is it. Abundance is a frequency. And
It
when
is.
we can remember it and when we can embody it through a number of different ways, even just a breath or just a remembrance of a memory, we allow ourselves to align to a higher frequency and we will see that reflection in our day to day. So that is so powerful. And tell us again, Goddess Rhonda, the different platforms you're on. I know you've mentioned YouTube as well as
Yes,
website. What are the
YouTube,
platforms?
Instagram, Facebook. I have a streaming channel on Binge TV, which is a metaphysical channel. I have the Goddess Spirituality group through Meetup, which you can look that up. It's all on my website. You'll see all that. TikTok, but I'm just starting on TikTok, so I don't have a lot on there yet. Have to navigate it. But those are my main ones.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today, Goddess Rhonda.
It was a pleasure and an honor. You were just so amazing to do this work, and you're just so beautiful.
So are you. This is our mutual
It's
admiration.
our mutual admiration society.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Goddess Rhonda. And I do want to thank our audience for joining us. This
Thank
is
you.
really about us really walking the path together, understanding ourselves, accepting our truth, and walking the path that feels right for us, feels right
Absolutely.
in the gut, because trauma and the resistance has to be released from the brain, from the heart and from the gut. And then we can continue to expand the layers because as we release some limits, some more limits come. So using different modalities is so key. So being very open-minded and connecting with people like Goddess Rhonda or myself, if that is what resonates, do not hesitate. We're here and we look forward to connecting even more. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Daily Soul Bytes Show. Bye bye.